If you're a fan of all things dark, leathery, smoky, this is going to be a fragrance for you. Cuoium by Orto Parisi. Hey guys, welcome back to Real Scent Review. Tonight's going to be a very special review because I've just hit 3,500 subscribers. Thank you guys so much. I appreciate you and all of your interaction. Please keep it up. Now, I find that this fragrance here really is emblematic of my channel in general. I love dark fragrances. I love smoky, dark, leather, challenging fragrances. And this one here encapsulates almost all of that, although I don't really think it's the most challenging fragrance, but we'll get to that later. So starting off with the presentation here, you know, as you can see, it has the general shape of all of the other Orto Parisi bottles, but this one here has a leather jacket on it. So the cap here I think is really special. Very, very strong, heavy cap. I feel like it's iron or something like that along the outer edge of the bottle cap. And on the top, the tip is made of leather. At least it feels like leather. And this symbol on the top is actually an old-fashioned shoemaking tool, and that's going to be important for later. In the front of the bottle, we have the neuron symbol. I'm not really sure what that's supposed to signify as far as this fragrance house goes, but it appears on a lot of their boxes and at least on this bottle here. And on the bottom, there's the infinity symbol, which I feel represents Alessandro Gualtieri's wish to connect the past with the future. Alessandro Gualtieri being the nose behind this fragrance, the owner of the Orto Parisi house and the house of Nasamato. Between those two houses, we have a lot of famous niche fragrances. Duro, Black Afgano by Nasamato. We have Terroni, Mega Mare by Orto Parisi, among many others. There's some really good fragrances there. If you're a fan of niche fragrances, you should definitely check out either one of those houses, or both. So the inspiration behind this fragrance here was Alessandro Gualtieri's grandfather, Vincenzo, who was a shoemaker way back when in Italy. And Vincenzo manufactured one and only one pair of leather shoes before he moved on to different materials, different manufacturing processes, all of that. But Alessandro wanted to remember his grandfather's first and only pair of leather shoes, a very traditional practice. So although he only produced that one pair of leather shoes by hand, you know, with manual labor, later moved on to other things, modernized, he progressed. Alessandro wanted to remember his grandfather with a very powerful fragrance based on very powerful memories of his grandfather. And I think more than that is the connection of the past, you know, our roots with the future, which is what we can become. That's my take on this at least. And a powerful fragrance it is. Oof, beautiful coming off the cap here. I don't even have to spray it. It just smells super, super strong. I have this drying down on my wrist right now from like 6 hours ago. So what I get in the fragrance is the following. In the top, we get a lot of raspberry, guaiac wood. In the mid, it's all about leather and more guaiac wood. And in the dry down, it's a little bit of castoreum with some more leather and some more guaiac wood. So all in all, very, very smoky, rich, dark, leathery fragrance. Opens up, like I said, tart, ketonic, raspberry. There's a touch of sweetness in there, but the raspberry in this is like really, really strong. If you remember in Terroni, another fragrance from this house, the opening to that has a little bit of like cherry. Some people detect it as like raspberry, but there's only like, you know, a touch of it in that fragrance. This one turns it up like to 11, to 11 and a half, 12, maybe even pushing 13. Very strong here in the opening, mixed with some guaiac wood. So it's a very, very smoky wood. Smells like being right next to a campfire. And that guaiac wood lasts into the middle where we're also met with some leather. Now it's not an animalic leather, but it is a very dark, oily type of leather. Smells like an old leather jacket, for example, and it's very prominent. In fact, the combination of, you know, the raspberry, the leather, and a little bit of that guaiac wood can give the impression of gasoline. It's honestly very powerful at the beginning, especially. And as we dry down, we get, you know, more guaiac wood, more leather. It just continues to be really dark, oily, leathery, smoky, woody. Like I said, like wearing a leather jacket or a pair of old leather shoes next to a campfire. And there might be just a hint of castoreum in the dry down. That Cuoium is going to be a dry, ever so slightly dirty animalic leather, but it's barely there. I would not call this an animalic or dirty fragrance. It's powerful, but I don't think it's animalic. The Cuoium is just barely there. It's there in the background, so I wouldn't be worried about this. If you're not a fan of animalics, I don't think you have anything to worry about here. This is a very powerful fragrance here. You know, woody, leathery, smoky fragrances have been done before. Tuscan Leather by Tom Ford comes to mind, although that might not be, you know, the perfect example of a smoky leather fragrance. There's another one, Iberian Leather by Memo Paris, for example, you know, is in the same realm as this one here. But Cuoium does things differently. Cuoium takes that leather, amplifies it, takes that woody smokiness and really amplifies it. And it adds, you know, a really tart raspberry note and just, you know, a hint of animalic goodness in the dry down that's just barely there, but if you know what you're looking for, you can detect it, and I think that allows the wearer to appreciate this fragrance even more. Now, having said that, if you're not a fan of dark fragrances, you're going to want to steer clear of this. It's a very, very, very powerful fragrance. And, you know, although it is relatively simple in its breakdown and development, I mean, it's not the most complicated fragrance out there. I'll be straight up about that. It does what it does very, very well. Its purpose is to, you know, conjure up very strong memories, very specific memories, you know, of being inside a shoemaker's shop. You know, you're working all day, physical labor, manipulating tools with your hands, you're stretching leather into the form of a shoe, you're sweating, it's probably really warm if you're in Italy, at least in certain parts of the year. Maybe as you're working, you're also smoking some cigarettes. I can totally get that vibe from this fragrance here. And you definitely have to be in the mood to experience that vibe, because if you're not in the mood, this fragrance will kill you. It'll invade your nostrils. It'll probably make you faint, honestly. Nah, I'm just exaggerating a little bit. But it is a very strong fragrance. And that's the next part of this. The performance. The performance on this is just insane. Again, I don't really know specifics. I haven't like measured it, but lasts all day and then some, 24 hours on the skin. Projects for up to 3 hours beyond an arm's length. This is an absolute room filler. You'll smell this across the street if someone is wearing this. So if you have an issue with this performance, I don't know what to tell you. There's probably no fragrance out there that's ever going to meet your expectations. I'm sorry to tell you. You might as well just give up this hobby right now. Now, it's not animalic at all, don't get me wrong. I mean, besides that little bit of Cuoium, which is barely there, to my nose at least, you know, it's not animalic, but definitely very strong. Very, 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 very strong. Although after an hour or so, it does become a little bit less in your face, right? The leather becomes a little bit smoother, but the smoke remains and the woodiness remains throughout the entire lifespan. So I think you definitely have to be in the mood to wear this, but if you are in the mood to wear this, this will check all of those boxes for you. It will be an amazing experience. Gotta get your hands on this one, guys, if you love dark, mysterious, brooding, and strong fragrances. Now, I said in the earlier part of this video that this kind of reminded me of like Tuscan Leather by Tom Ford and maybe a little bit of Iberian Leather by Memo Paris. Absolutely. But this one is way stronger and it's less expensive. So for example, right now, Fragrance Buy in North America has this on for $128 US. That's for the 50 ml bottle. Here in Europe, Perfumeria Erlai has this one on for, I think it's right around 145 euros. You know, sometimes you can find it for a little bit less than that, but most of the time here in the European Union, it's hovering around 145 euros, and sometimes it's even more than that. So I think it's a way better buy than definitely Tuscan Leather by Tom Ford. I mean, that's not even really one of my favorite fragrances. And as far as Iberian Leather by Memo Paris goes, that's another really good one. I'm actually gonna have to review that one later. But yeah, you know, this isn't a comparison video. I'm just trying to give you a general idea of how this one smells. Maybe if you haven't smelled this one, but you're familiar with those two other ones, you know. Anyway, that's my point here. Guys, that's been my review of Cuoium by Orto Parisi. By the way, Cuoium means leather in the Latin language. I didn't really specify that in the video, but that's what it is, Cuoium, leather, tying in with the general theme of this. Guys, I want to thank you again very much for your viewership, for your interaction. Keep posting those comments, guys. I love hearing from you. Believe it or not, I do read every single one of your comments. Although I'm busy, I don't have time to answer all of them right away, but I promise I do not forget about you guys. I will answer everybody eventually when I can get around to it. You guys are just the best. I thank you very much from the bottom of my heart. Until next time, keep it real, guys.